everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files, a podcast about animal rescue and welfare. My name is Kelly, and every week I talk about issues surrounding animals in this country and to the people who are passionate about making their lives better. My guest today is Kimmi Rasky. Passionate about animal advocacy for the last 8 years, her primary focus is on prevention and retention in the animal welfare space. And we are here to learn all about the work that she is currently doing. Hi, Kimmi. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for coming on. I know we've had a mutual friend now for the last few years, and it was just a matter of time before we connected over this all important subject. So I'm so glad we have finally been able to do this.
Yeah, I feel like he would tell me stories of like your fosters, then he'd probably tell you stories about like what I was doing, and I don't know. And when we lived in the same city, like how we didn't do it together, I will never know. But it is what it is.
You're in the Nashville area currently. You moved there from Pittsburgh. It just 2 years ago. Is that right?
Or a little over 2.5. Yeah.
2.5. So you actually moved right around the time that I just got into fostering. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's part of where that disconnect is from. I think one of the reasons that our friends started kind of connecting us was I started getting into fostering. And he was like, oh, I have a friend that is doing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do it with a lovely rescue too from they've been around forever and just great volunteers. So.
Yeah, they Cross Your Paws does a really great job of bringing up a lot of different dogs from Kentucky, West Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
They're strictly foster based, and the amount of dogs that move through the rescue being strictly foster based is really pretty incredible.
Huge. Yeah. Originally, when I started an organization up there in Pittsburgh, and the big thing was I wanted to work with rescues that were foster based because it was about training and everything. So I think foster-based rescues are incredible in so many ways because to keep a dog out of a shelter, and there are shelter environments that are incredible and amazing, but if you can keep a dog out of a shelter and get to know them in a home, it helps a little bit. So
it helps a lot. I mean, I know that there's a lot of research that shows that dogs that even spend just a very short amount of time in a temporary foster or go on doggy day outs, like what Animal Protectors of Allegheny Valley advocates, those dogs are much more likely to get adopted because we have, as volunteers, we get a little bit more of a true assessment of their personality as opposed to the way that they're just trying to regulate and survive within the shelter environment.
I actually went to the Humane World for Animals Animal Expo. It was in Pittsburgh last week. And I went last week, 2 weeks ago, and I went to a session it was called Mutt Mentors. And it was a shelter that would have volunteers, like elevated volunteers come in, and they had a specific dog. They worked with them minimum of 3 hours a week. And their FAS scores, so their fear, anxiety, and stress scores went from a 5 all the way down to a 1. Just after one, and not just on the days that they had these outings and things like that, overall. And so there are I think shelters are getting a lot more into that. And I think it provides such an incredible experience for volunteers. I just went out to another sanctuary out in Utah and experienced a lot of that and how they've done it. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing for everybody that's involved in that scenario.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we wish that these programs didn't have to exist, but you know what I mean? We wish everybody was ethical in the way that dogs came into this world and survived in this world, but our reality is what it is, and so to have these resources is truly, truly wonderful. Tell me about your journey in animal rescue, kind of like what got you started 8 years ago and how it's progressed since then.
Absolutely. So actually it was good timing. Here's Archie. That's my oldest dog. Hello. He always looks very judgmental. And that's, hello. You saying hello. So we actually got Archie now almost 10 years ago. He'll be 10 in November. We got him from a breeder because my now husband and I, we wanted a golden, and he had gotten attacked by a rescue dog in the past. We knew very well that it was the situation of that dog. Sometimes there are neurological things that happen, but we're like, let's make sure we know what we're getting. And we're lucky. He's an incredible dog, and he always was. But right after we got him, I really learned about the rescue world, and I was like, this is something I need to fix. I almost felt like I did a disservice to a community by going to a breeder, and I didn't. Like, we treat our dog incredible. It turned out it was a very ethical breeder, which was great. But soon after getting him, we started fostering. So we had our first foster. Her name was Poppy. She was a heartworm foster. And as soon as she was checked out, green light from having heartworm, she got put right back on the shelter floor, but we didn't even get to like say goodbye. Like, it was very, very, so from there I was like, I will only foster with foster based only. Right. And I just, from there, with many different organizations I started working with, and, I had one foster named Thor. Just, you always have a couple that seriously change your life. And
Right.
he was a Great Pyrenees, and he was spontaneously human aggressive. Like, he would just get scared all of a sudden and like go to people who are strangers, never to me. But, and I said, if he doesn't get training, he's going to get put down because someone's going to misunderstand him. So went to the trainer that we use up there in Pittsburgh. And shortly after that, I talked to the trainer and we were like, we should build an organization or a program that provides free training to these rescue dogs so that this doesn't happen. So we built what's called the Say It Once Rescue League up there in Pittsburgh, and that is still going. They do an incredible event called the Dog Derby every year. Worked with a lot of partners out there and started providing free training for rescue dogs. And when I moved to Nashville, obviously I had to pass it on to the people up there in Pittsburgh. But I just noticed, like, first of all, I need to do something still within the animal welfare space. And I knew there was so much more than training too that could be done to help. And that's where the prevention and retention comes in. So there are people in the middle of that prevention and retention. There are so many rescues and shelters, everything doing that work of physically rescuing those dogs. There are way less people doing the work to try to prevent those dogs from having to come in, right? Or keep those dogs who are adopted from coming back because they don't have time. So I really wanted to be able to create a movement that gave rescue workers like a breath of fresh air. Like, oh my gosh, thank God they're doing it. Like, thank God someone's doing it and helping me out here, because it's endless and we're not going to foster or rescue our way out of this crisis. It's going to continue to happen. And that's very long-winded, but also kind of a short way of how I got involved. It really called to me. I always say it's my legacy to leave. I don't want human children. I say this is my legacy to leave, not human children.
Yeah. So tell me, like, how a prevention and retention program, how do you operate that? How do you envision that working? What are the things that you're really focusing on for
Yeah.
prevention and retention?
Yeah. So at first, when I got started, I was like, I just need to do something. So we started campaigns, and one of them was called Gold for Good. One of my dogs is from an organization that we started supporting. But as I started working through specifically a campaign that we did in Oxford, Mississippi, where my husband and I met and went to school, hotty toddy, I noticed that the biggest thing really is access and affordability to spay and neuter. And I always joke, like, it's not that sexy, but like, it is the truth. And
Right.
so you also realize too, of course, like, there are a lot of rescues and everything doing it, but it's not just the animals coming into the shelter that need it. It's companion animals that, for someone who lives an hour away from a vet or can't afford a $700 surgery, but they want to keep their dog and they want to make sure their dog is safe, it's better than putting them back in the system. So we're actually working on composing a bill here in Tennessee it's modeled after one in Delaware. What they did in Delaware was they built an animal welfare department. We're not going to do that here in Tennessee. That's going to take a whole lot longer. But there is a pet food registration bill or fee that they have, that big companies will have every year. And that fee, along with an extra $3 fee that goes to anyone who gets a rabies vaccine for their dog, it funds spay and neuter initiatives for Delaware. Citizens and nonprofits can apply for grants. Citizens can apply for vouchers. So we're looking to do that here in Tennessee. And there's already a mechanism in place where they have a license plate here. So any funds from that license plate go to the Spay Neuter Fund, where then nonprofits can go ahead and apply for grants. So it's nice that there's already a mechanism, because now we're just proposing more ways to get more funding, which is great. So I'm working with the Humane World for Animals, the state director in Tennessee. I'm working with her on that and a couple other advocates here in Tennessee to get that rolling. And hopefully we'll find a legislative official to sponsor it. And yeah, so that's prevention. That's a big part on prevention. And then retention side of things is we actually modeled after a foster that I had in the past. Her name is Nina, a little pitty, perfect little girl, right? Again, sometimes would just have behaviors that I think anyone would look at and say, oh my gosh, it's a pit bull, put that dog down, right? And there was a couple who loved her the minute they saw her, but couldn't adopt right away. Then after a few months, they're like, okay, let's do another visit with her. Okay, let's take her to a training class. Let's do a walk. Let's do a sleepover. And it was very, very like intentional and patient. So now she's living in a perfect home with her parents and her sister, and it's the most beautiful thing. So we created a program called Pause Before Promise that we're piloting right now, actually, with Rare Rescue here in Nashville. And we're working with fosters and we're developing a very easy like video library of what are some simple skills you can teach this dog before it even gets adopted, right? And then the longer the dog is in rescue, the more skills it's going to learn. Then when a adopter comes in, they work with the foster and that dog to make sure that, you know, they keep that training up and they really like the way that dog works in that training and their lifestyle fits it. And hopefully we'll be able to fund their training at the end too, but to keep them in their home and to make sure that a decision isn't made before they know it's the right one. Because I think a lot of time there's a lot of pressure on adopters of like, yeah, you came to visit this dog, you have to go see, you have to adopt this dog. Like that is not the case. We want it to be right for everybody.
So it's interesting because when I'm talking about that retention side of things, and I want to get into the prevention too and how that works,
Mhm.
especially the money side of it. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the retention side of things, here's kind of the question that I see. My experience is limited to the way, excuse me, that Cross Your Paws runs things, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm just speaking from that experience. You have a lot
Yeah.
more experience with other shelters than I do. But our turnover rate is so high, right? And there's always a need. So I could, we have two fosters right now. We have our long-term behavioral foster, Max, who I've spoken about on the podcast before. And then we actually have a Great Pyrenees puppy mix right
Yeah.
now as well that we'll have until at least April 28th. But the second that Boone, the puppy, gets adopted, I could have another foster in here the next
Yeah.
day and the
Yeah.
next day and the next day and the next day. So how are you working with, because fosters are volunteers
Yeah.
and they have jobs and they have families and they have their own dogs and they have lives. So like how do you get them to commit to not only the training on the front end for a dog that, might be gone in a week,
Yeah.
or do you make sure it stays in there a little bit longer? And then how do you get them to commit to work with the adopters on the back end? Because to be clear, I make myself available to every single one of my
Of course.
adopters. And
Yeah.
most fosters are really good about being like, let me know if you need anything. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if it's the middle of the night. But to have that commitment on the back end, I would think would be a little bit of a challenge.
It is, yeah. And that's where it comes in to make it very, very easy and accessible and fit it into what they're already doing. It's not every foster either. We make sure that this is a foster that wants to do it. Um, and that they know the time commitment of it. But that's why even when like we work with trainers to create these videos, multiple trainers, and I say to them, don't use any tools. I want it to be a 2-minute long video max. Make it as simple as possible because they do have their life, right? So making sure that different tasks and training fit into what they're already doing. Like I have to feed this dog anyway. Okay, let's take this 5 minutes to do some training with the kibble and things like that. So finding ways of meeting them where they're at and making it theirs too, because it's going to make it a lot easier for them with the dog and foster if they're trained, right? It's going to make it a lot easier. It's going to make it easier for them to get adopted and hopefully make it a little bit faster. But it's just talking with the fosters in general and that's why we're piloting it slowly, right? Because if it works,
Right.
great. But you do need people, much like that mentor program. It's volunteers that saw the issue that was happening at the shelter and asked about it, and then help develop the program. So a lot of times they're looking for answers anyway. I would assume you would too, right? If like
Right.
he's a behavioral foster, like what I need
Right.
resources, like what can I do? And because the longer it's almost like when a house goes up for sale, and I'm not a realtor, but the longer the house is up for sale, sometimes I guess the less appealing it is. It's similar sometimes with a dog. Why is that
Right.
dog still there? And so this also enables fosters to say, well, the dog's still here because I'm still teaching him new tricks, and I'm looking for an adopter that wants to engage in that as well.
One of the things that I've learned through this process for the last 2.5 years is that if it is a bit of marketing with these
Oh,
dogs,
yeah.
right? It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of marketing, it's a lot of sales, and my background is in sales. I've been in
Mhm.
sales my entire adult life. And so having a dog that's marketable in the sense where it's housebroken and it's crate trained or it's people friendly or kid friendly or cat friendly or dog friendly or whatever, that does make the dog so much more adoptable. But
Yeah.
what I like about what you're doing is that it's not just about marketing the dog, it's about on the back end, giving the dog the skills, giving the adopter the skills to be able to make sure that that adoption sticks. Because we are seeing a lot of returns from, somebody saying something like, oh, well, this dog isn't cat friendly or isn't kid friendly. It's like, okay, well, it is, but
But
you
did you know
need
how to
some
introduce them?
time. You rushed that decompression period, or you didn't spend enough time making sure it was a slow and monitored introduction. And it is a lot of work, but I love that you're focusing on the training and the skill side of things.
Yeah, and
That's really, really important.
hopefully down the line, I'll have enough funding and resources and connections where, like, we can have dedicated fosters that we know are paw partners, we call them internally, that we know, like, they're trained volunteers that way. Then we can pull from other rescues to help out. But right now, yeah, we're trying to meet them where they're at. But the thing is, like, it does make them a lot more attractive, and it's a lot of times you have to, as a rescue, like, write up these really cool and fun descriptions of these dogs. And sometimes you have to leave stuff out and make sure you disclose it when you talk to the adopter. But these types of programs will make it so you don't have to do that. You're eliminating any barriers to adoption, as many as possible, because at the end of the day, it's not the cost to physically adopt the dog. It's not. No rescue is charging like out the wazoo, right?
Right.
It's it's the after part. So even looking into preventative wellness programming for rescues and dogs, and saying, like, okay, can we work with a pet insurance company to provide 1 year of free pet insurance to make sure that this family can get settled and understand. So just eliminating any barrier that we can for adopters and for rescues.
As far as the program in Delaware is concerned, if we can go back to the
Yeah.
prevention side of things, first of all, I like to say all the time that Bob Barker had it right to spay
Yeah.
and neuter your pets. Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
man was
He's really
ahead of
crazy.
his
You know what? I'm curious
time.
how that just didn't, like, why didn't that make more of a movement? Anyway, sorry, I've never thought of
No,
that.
I
Yeah.
want a bumper sticker that says Bob Barker had it right, spay and neuter your pets. Like I
What?
genuinely do. If someone wants to make that for me, I will happily purchase it from you.
Yeah.
I'll put it on my link tree.
Oh my gosh, that's
Uh,
now it's gonna be an advocacy thing. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I know. But I'm curious about, because you kind of like went through it so quickly. So you said that there's a pet food fee.
Mhm.
Is that paid by the pet food company that's based in Delaware that's selling to people in Delaware? So it's essentially like a tax. So let's just say
No,
it's
it is not a tax. We make
okay.
sure
It's
not to
not.
say that,
Okay.
because the
Okay. Fair enough.
consumer, yeah, because that is, we don't want the public to feel like they're gonna pay extra, right? Like, to pay a whole lot extra. Some
Mm,
places do call it a tax. We call it's a registration fee. Much like in the future, I would love if breeders, we're gonna put it in a proposal for the bill, if breeders had to register, and then those registrations fee went toward prevention. It's much like that. So it's not taking like much from the actual community and the individuals. The rabies vaccine, yeah, $3 extra. If someone's mad about that,
right.
then you probably shouldn't have a pet. Um,
Right.
so yeah,
Right.
that's where. But yeah, it's something to look into and, like, to learn more about too, because I don't know what states have it. I thought Tennessee had it. I thought it was like a registration thing, and they don't. So that's just interesting. So the pet food companies pay per label. So say a big organization has like 4 different types of food that they sell. They would pay a registration fee for each label. And that could add up to millions, right? So
Right. And that's for anyone that's selling in Delaware or producing in Delaware.
that's a great question. I have to look into that. I believe
I'm
it's
just
selling.
curious.
No, yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. Like, we're in the middle of developing it, right? Like, we just had another meeting today about it. So great question. I believe it's selling though, because I don't know how many pet food companies are like producing in Delaware.
Well, what's
Right.
interesting about Delaware though, and that would be good for you to like look into to
Mhm.
just kind of know, but like
Yeah.
what's interesting about Delaware is a lot of companies, their corporate offices are based in Delaware because they don't have as much in the way of like corporate state taxes.
Yeah, that's like same
Literally,
here. There's no income tax and things like
yeah.
that. So a lot of like celebrities
Yeah.
even move their businesses here. Yeah.
Right. Right. So they'll have literally just like a PO box or one teeny tiny office so that they can say that they're based in Delaware.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, that would be interesting to
Yeah,
know
I
exactly
do
how that
wonder.
money is tracked.
Because that's where most of their funding comes from, and that's
Mhm.
I'll send it to you after just so you can, like, look at it, but
Yeah,
it is
I could post it to the
yeah,
show notes as well so
and
people
they
can
were
look
on
into it.
another podcast too. I'll send you the link. I think it's, like, Animal Advocates podcast explaining it, but still, like, if you don't know what that registration fee is or where it comes from, you don't know that that's a thing, or if your state does have it, like, where is it going? That's a good question to ask, right? What is it
Right.
going to?
So then rescues are then appealing to the state, maybe through like almost like a grant process to say, hey, we're looking to do a spay and neuter clinic and we
Mhm.
need funds for that.
Yep.
And then they can provide either free or low cost spay and neuter. Do you know if any of that also goes into any vaccines for
No,
like low
not
cost vaccine or microchipping?
I don't think it does for that, and we're not proposing that here, I will say,
Okay.
because my big thing is for the spay neuter side too, the other thing to add in is that it is income based for citizens as well. So it's not just rescue animals, which I think is huge. My mission with Rescue Revival specifically is to, like, obviously rescues are doing it, and they're able to. I don't want to replace what they're doing and take on what they're doing. I want to add to it. So if we can, like, take off some of the load, sure, of spay neuter, or if we can spay neuter more pets in addition to what they're doing, then hopefully they can still afford the vaccines. And those are a lot more accessible, fortunately, a lot more accessible. But I think down the line that I also think a lot of times when people apply for grants and everything along those lines, like the sometimes a vaccine is worked into maybe what they're proposing and things, everything. So this right now is just specifically for spay neuter so that there's less animals around.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And that is wildly, wildly important and would help solve a
Yeah.
lot of problems.
Especially here, like you said, so many come from Kentucky and West Virginia. Like in the South, we work with the rescue in Mississippi. Their biggest thing is transport.
I
It's
know.
wild in the South. And yeah, there are a lot of heartworm dogs and things like that. But yeah, fortunately, I think vaccine access and affordability is a lot easier than spay neuter. But I also don't think that's out of the question, right? To be able to provide that down the line. Because if one problem goes away, another one might come. So if we get started with one thing, then we can always add stuff to it. Hopefully, make friends.
Curious about on your take about something because I have my own opinions, but I get this question a lot when I talk to people about fostering and I'll say, "Oh, he came up from, this dog came up from West Virginia or this dog came up from Kentucky." And they'll be like, "Kentucky? Oh, that's so interesting." And I'll say, "Well, yeah, that's most of Cross Your Paws's dogs come from either a rescue, a county rescue shelter in West Virginia or a county shelter in Kentucky." And a lot of people say, well, what about the dogs here? And like, why is that? And my thought process and my answer to that, I'm just curious about yours, has always been it's worse in the South. There are fewer dogs that are spayed and neutered. And so, unfortunately, the kind of the societal mentality around companion animals is different in the South. It's not to say that pets in the
Yeah.
North should or
No, like,
are excluded in any way, shape, or form, but the need is so great in the South and the
mhm.
euthanasia rates are higher in the South that's why rescues in the North do what they do. And I'm just curious, having come from Pittsburgh and now you're in Tennessee and you're seeing it firsthand, like what do you think is going on there if you had to say?
First of all, I get that question a lot too because we rescued one of our dogs from Turkey, the country of
Wow.
Turkey,
Yeah.
and one of our
Right.
campaigns helps that rescue. So I get that. The stray animal crisis in the South is immense. It is immense because and I'm sure there are a lot of reasons as to why. I think part of it is that there are a lot of rural areas that don't have access to things like spay neuter or just overall vet care. And yes, I think not everywhere, like Nashville is the most dog friendly city. It's a big reason why we moved here. But there are a lot of places like in the South where it's okay to just, you have a dog, it's an outside dog, right? It is what it
Right.
is. And you don't know if that dog's going to, you know, hang out with another one. You don't know. And
Right.
that's just, so you're absolutely right. The attitude is there. I was with, a regional strategist from Best Friends Animal Society yesterday. I was talking to her, and she oversees Tennessee and Kentucky shelters. They work with them to help them to get to 90% or more no kill. Her one shelter in Kentucky had 30 dogs that were living in crates because they were so over capacity. So they need to transport immediately. You're on point. It's a little bit cultural, and it's a lot of it. There's just a whole lot more of them. Whole lot more. And less rescues doing it, I think, I would imagine, down here as well. Um, like in Mississippi and Alabama, right? Those are two really rough ones. So yeah, that's a big, big part of it for sure.
Do you think that part of your prevention program, as far as like the spay and neuter is concerned, is going to have education for the public attached to it?
I would hope and pray that we do that down the line as well.
Right.
I think not even just public, like for kids. Not even just spay and neuter, but
Right.
just animal welfare and animal care and like knowing what a dog is and y- where they might come from. Huge. It's got to be education. And so here's the thing too. Like, yeah, spay and neuter your pets. I believe that there are some people who will have, a golden retriever and they don't want to neuter him until he's 2 years old. Fine. But those are also mostly, hopefully, the people that are being diligent of making sure they're not around, other dogs that are in spayed or neutered. So like, I think a big thing about the rescue community as well is that we are viewed as working against people, against the system, against breeders and all these things. That's not the case of where I want to go. I want to work with the systems. I want to understand where everybody's coming from. I saw a story of a woman who adopted 2 labs, or not adopted. She got them from breeder. And she goes and finds out that her female lab is pregnant because she had a boy and a girl. And she was like, well, I don't get it. She's not around any other dogs other than her brother. Why would she do that? They don't know about incest. Like dogs don't know about that. So
Right.
even someone like that
Right.
of making sure that, yes, they have the education of why are we spaying and neutering, or like, why wouldn't you? Of course, there's studies on if you wait longer, it's better for them. But the margin of that is minimal at times. And if
Right.
you are going to do that, like we waited 2 years to neuter Archie because again, like we didn't really know, but we also like never took him to dog parks. We never took him to boarding or anything along those lines. But people get mad when rescues spay neuter at 8 weeks, but like you just can't trust people to do it after if they've adopted up. You
Yeah.
can't. Yeah. And that's okay.
I mean, I definitely think 8 weeks is personally, and I'm not a vet.
Yeah.
I think that's way too young.
It's
But
so young. Yes, I agree.
right, it's way too young.
You know what I mean?
But that's what, and I was just talking to somebody about this because Boone, our current foster, isn't neutered.
Yeah.
And when I have a foster that isn't neutered or spayed and I adopt them out unneutered or unspayed or intact, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
I should
don't know
maybe
why.
say the right words because
Yeah.
I know them. But when I adopt them out intact, I actually have gotten, not pushback, but I have people go, oh, wow, I'm so surprised
Yes.
that your rescue does that. And I always say, well, listen, it's part of the adoption contract that they get them spayed and neutered. And it's right around the 6-month mark is
Mhm.
when, CYP and other rescues want to see that done. Unless you have something from your vet where maybe the dog has a growth development issue or something and the vet is going, this is not the right time for this
Right.
particular
Right.
dog. Certainly that's a conversation worth having with the rescue. But then we also sponsor it through our participating
Exactly.
vets, or we
Mhm.
give you like a $50, basically a voucher money to say, okay, if you want to go to your own vet, we understand. Here's some money towards that because we're not going to pay whatever that price is that your own vet has. We have prices worked out with other vets. I will say though, you have more faith in people than I do because
I don't think so. It's funny you say that.
I don't at all, because that
Yeah.
idea that somebody would say like, I'm going to wait, 2 years, if it's coming from a place of, like just not knowing, like you said, you you got Archie from the breeder. You didn't
Yeah.
necessarily know how big the risk is with not having a
Well, we
neutered
thought it was
dog
just
or
better for
whatever.
his health, right? Like his growth, and we knew we were
Right,
keeping him away.
right.
Yeah.
Get that. But like I recently ran an application where this person wanted to adopt Boone's litter mate,
Mhm.
and she's not spayed yet. And they have a 4-month-old intact male. And I just said, that's a flat out no. This is not
100%.
happening.
Yeah.
I understand he's too young. I get that. I respect that. And so is she, but we're not putting them in the same household.
Yeah.
And the responses I got weren't argumentative so much as they were blindly naive. Like this person just said, well, we're not trying to breed them if that's what you think. I said, no, but like accidental litters absolutely
That's the
do
issue. It's
happen
not even just
all the
neuters, it is
time.
the accidental litter.
And
Yeah.
and they said, well, we'll keep them apart. And I was like, listen, I know what it's like trying to keep my dogs apart and live my life and how difficult that is
Yeah.
just to like manage them going from room to room. The
Mhm.
idea that you're thinking you want to do that with puppies on a long-term basis, like I didn't say this to her, but
Yeah.
I just flat out said no. But I was like, that's just so
No,
naive. There's just no way.
I
All
completely
they need
understand
is
where you're
two
coming from.
minutes of access.
Yep.
And now you've got another litter, and that's, feeding back into the system that we just got this dog out.
Exactly. And I had one time we had a husky rescue that was up for adoption. Someone, no joke, applied asking like, "Can she not be fixed before we get her?" And I was like, "What?" Immediately red flag, no. And same thing with that. What I mean is like if someone goes to, I think if you're rescuing a dog, even for the rescue to give it out without being spayed or neutered, I completely get it. Like if I can wait, I'm gonna wait, right? And know that I'm
Right.
going to, but there does need to be a contract. The problem with that is that there's nothing that can be legally binding, right? So my idea is down the line to have specific caseworkers for adoption. So if that does happen, like we do keep track of that or whatnot. And again, you make that access, which you guys do, and it works really well. That for the most part, right? So that is typical in what a lot of rescues should and would do. But yeah, you're also diligent in adopting out to make, you're not going to adopt out to somewhere where they already have an intact animal. And if their philosophy is to keep that dog intact for as long as possible, you're not going to adopt out to them because then you know that the dog you're adopting out is going to be the same way. If someone goes to like, I'm speaking more when I say like the faith in people, if they go to a breeder and they've gone to like an ethical breeder too, a lot of times they'll have in their contracts like you cannot breed this dog or whatnot. And they decide to wait because they've gotten that dog for a specific purpose or whatnot. They're a little more diligent in making sure that they're not just like around other dogs that are still intact. That's more of what I mean.
Right.
But I think like the faith in people is so hard in the rescue world overall. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, right? Like,
Right.
but doing as much as we can to provide that access and that understanding is what's needed. But you do know the red flags of like, I think even asking on adoption applications, it'll say, do you spay neuter all your pets? And if someone says no, why? Okay, well, if not, sometimes that's a flat out no then, and that's okay, right? That is
Right.
okay.
Well, it's a balancing act though,
Mhm.
because, you want to get these dogs adopted to loving homes,
Yeah,
but you also have to have real conversations with people where you go, you know, this idea of having them not spayed and not neutered is contributing to the problem that
exactly.
we're having here.
Yeah, that's what you have to
And
get.
it is a problem. And
Mhm.
and so I think like part of it is also letting people know what those benefits are that just go beyond not having an accidental litter, as far
Yeah,
as like the research that backs up behavioral benefits, health benefits, making sure that people know about that, because we're still very much battling the whole spay and neuter fight.
in every which way and direction. And if you
Mhm.
ask people, why spay, because there are a lot of rescue workers and advocates who will say like, we need more spay neuter. But why? Like, what's the issue? Is it access? Is it affordability? Is it education? Is
Mhm.
it awareness? So I guess we do the 3 A's there. Is it access, affordability,
Right.
or awareness? And that is a big part of it.
Right.
And I think we probably do need to add a whole lot more into. Also, sorry, he apparently
Right.
has a lot of opinions on this all of a sudden. Bye.
He's handsome.
He's a handsome boy. I don't know
He
what
is
his
a
deal is right
handsome
now.
boy.
Nice.
Mine are outside and I can hear them, like, barking and playing right now,
I mean, I
so
know work calls all day. Like, they never do this.
yeah.
He never does this.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like, just wants attention right now. I don't know why.
What is something that through fostering you've learned? Like, something that's really stuck with you through being a foster for the last 8 years?
It's very much not black or white, right? There's always gonna be some sort of gray area. And I think actually a big thing, honestly, is people will say, like, "Oh, I could never foster. I could never give that dog up." You are not going to connect with every dog. You'll know if it's your dog, right? Like, we would say some fosters we've had that we would adopt out, like, "Okay, if it comes back, that's our dog," right? I've only had a couple that I've
Mhm.
really, really, like, bawled my eyes out. Um, I think that's a big one. You know, you'll know. You won't always connect with every dog, but you'll be able to advocate for that dog. I think that's probably a big, big one. And just because, yeah, again, like, they can't speak for themselves, so it's an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I actually just wrote, I'm going to start a newsletter here soon. So this is the first that listeners are hearing this, but I'm going to start a newsletter where monthly I'm going to, talk about what talked about on the show, what's coming up on the show, or maybe just write an article of some things that I've been thinking about. And my first newsletter is going to be an article that I just wrote for Pennsylvania Voters for Animals for their website, where I talk about these are all the reasons that you've told yourself you can't foster. And here are the things
Yeah,
that I'd like to tell you as to like why you can.
yeah.
And that's the biggest one. That's the biggest pushback I hear every single time
Mhm.
I tell people that I foster. I always hear why I can never give them up. And, I was talking to my really close friend and personal trainer about it. And I said that in the article, I said, you're worried about loving this dog and saying goodbye to this dog, but what you're not thinking about is the fact that the alternative might be death for this
Yeah.
dog.
Uh-huh.
You're sparing yourself. You're not sparing the dog in any way, shape, or form. She was
Yeah.
like,
It's a selfish thing to
sh
say, and that's okay,
it is.
but it is. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, that's really guilt trippy that you put it in an article." I go, "Yeah, at this point, I don't really care because like 400,000 dogs are going to get, or excuse me, animals are going to get
Yeah.
euthanized this year. And we have to do something different. We have to stop with that narrative and we have to stop telling fosters, oh, you should keep that one. It really likes you." I hear that with every single foster I have. I'm like, duh, I
You'll
feed it.
know.
I love it. I
Yeah.
make it feel safe. They all really like me. I really like all of them.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm keeping the dog.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember is too, like, just because you adopt the dog out doesn't mean you'll never see it again. Every time I go back up to
Right.
Pittsburgh, I see Nina. Right? If Thor lived closer, I would see him, but I get Christmas cards from Thor, right? There are certain ones
Right.
you will have
Yeah.
that you have that connection with, and
Mhm.
it's more fulfilling to find the right home. Like,
My
when you
God.
when you what they don't understand is that the feeling that they'll get when they are able to locate the family and see that dog thrive, that completely outweighs how sad you might be giving it up. Like, even when we were just out in Utah at Best Friends Sanctuary, we had dogs for sleepovers and outings, and there were 2 of them that I was like, "Oh my god," like, I was, like, crying, giving them back, but I knew they weren't my dog, right? And I knew I did them so much more of a service and other dogs of a service by bringing them back to the rescue, but I made, like, videos about them, and actually Best Friends just reached out asking if they could, like, post the video on it. So, like, there are other ways to heal that feeling, right? To understand, oh, like, but look how happy that dog is now with its family. That's the right family. Or even bringing him back to the sanctuary. It was like the dogs didn't even care because they are happy at that sanctuary because they do it right out there. It is
Mhm.
absolutely incredible. Like, they're not nervous about it. You're not doing them I wouldn't be doing any dog right now a service by adopting a 4th one just for the sake of, "Oh, I feel like I, like, should do that." I want to,
Right.
but, we're lucky. We have 3 really great ones, and we live in an apartment right now in Nashville. Like, it's not
Right.
I'd rather find that dog a home.
We had a dog that we actually took over for another foster. And I've talked about this before, like not every foster is going to work in every home. And that's the beauty of fostering, is that you can make a change. You can ask another foster to take over. You can maybe take it back to its rescue if they are not strictly foster based,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. And so we took this dog in, and he is super high energy. Like he had like hound, but not like hunting dog in
Yeah.
him, boxer in him, super high energy. He was like a nut job. And at the time, we had all of our dogs that were primarily like senior dogs. So we had to like
Uh-huh.
arrange play dates. Well, his meet and greet came and the family came and they were a young couple and they had a super high energy dog. And we were at the meet and greet and those two dogs played just intensely for like an hour. And you
Yeah.
could see their dog was so happy to be playing with this dog
Yeah.
that I looked at the adopter, Brittany, and I said, so you have to go home with this dog, right? Like this, clearly the dogs
Yeah.
have decided that they belong together and it
Yeah.
almost doesn't matter what you think. And she
Right.
left and she was like, oh yeah, I don't think I can leave without this like new best friend for our dog. So
Yeah. And like just because
seeing
like the
that
dog
kind of
likes
thing
you,
is so gratifying.
it
It's
is. It's so much more than
so
the
gratifying.
sadness you'll feel giving that dog to a home. Like, first of all, if you really think about it, how sad are you really going to be when you say, "Hi, you're in your forever home"? Like, how sad are you really going to be about that?
Right.
And again, like
Right.
you said, it's selfish. It's sad for yourself. Like, I am, yes, I'm sad for myself. Like, I think it's a violation of my human rights that I can't just adopt every dog that I feel like I connect with, right? Yeah. And that's okay to admit that that's selfish, but it's it's something that you probably need to discuss with a therapist. Like, you're avoiding some sort of emotion, or you just don't want to foster, and that's okay too. That's okay. Right? It's absolutely fine. There are other ways that you can help if you want to help the crisis. But yeah, I say excuse, and I never want to shame people because I think that the rescue world does that far too much.
Right.
But when they
To
say
each
that,
other even too.
more so to each other, it is horrifying sometimes. And that's another episode that we can definitely go into one day. But um, it's it's just like that's an excuse, and you're not ready to foster right now. That's that.
Right.
Yeah.
I would challenge that anybody who is an animal lover who is thinking about fostering and they're kind of telling themselves that that's their only barrier.
Hmm.
Just look past it just like a little bit, because I fall in love with every dog I
Yeah.
meet on the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every dog that comes by my office, or every dog I get to say hello to. And you're always like, "Oh, that's such a cool dog," and you're never going to see them again. You're
Yeah.
never going to interact
You
with them
also know if
again.
something came down to it, you would do anything you could for that dog. And that's what people have to remember,
Right.
is that you would do anything you could for that dog. You can't bring that dog into your home permanently. So you're doing it
Right.
a disservice. Give it a temporary home and advocate for it and find the perfect home, because there are a lot of dogs, like you said, that you've fallen in love with, I've fallen in love with, and I just know, like, that's just not my dog. But I love it,
Right.
and I will do anything for it. And if it comes back from the family, like, come on in, right? And that's
Mhm.
okay. And people just need to reframe the idea of I'm giving that dog up to I'm helping it find its forever home, hopefully,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, it's
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way that I look at it, because it is a privilege to be able to say I've fostered over 20 dogs in the last two
Yeah.
and a half years, and I've loved every single one of those dogs like they are my own dog, but I've also been able to find every single one of those dogs a really happy forever home. And that,
And I think
that
if you
really
don't
is a privilege.
yeah, if you don't love every dog, then you know, like maybe
Yeah.
that's more
There
of an
have been some though where I'm like,
oh, yeah.
it's okay that you're like,
Yes.
I am cool moving on from you because maybe you've been a lot of work or a lot of
Yes.
this or a lot of that.
1,000%.
And it's okay that this is time.
But if
You know
someone
what
is
I mean?
waiting for the moment of being like, yeah, if a foster comes in, I'm ready for it to leave, because that's the antithesis of what they're talking about, right? Then, like, that's not what you should be doing anyway,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, there are some that I've been like,
Right.
yeah, this is not, I'm not your.
Yeah. I need a break after that one.
Yes. Yes. And that's okay
Yeah.
too, by the way. Like, anyone
And that's okay.
that is okay too, right?
Right. That is okay. What is something that, because you're like me in the sense that when you meet new people, one of the first thing that you talk about is your love for animal rescue and animal advocacy and dogs specifically. And I think we all have kind of that, elevator speech, that 3-second thing that we always tell people that we wish people knew, that we wish more people knew. What is that thing that you preach that you wish more people knew about?
It's probably not 3 seconds. I'm not known for short-windedness, but it is along the lines of nonprofit workers are doing a job that if it was not done, your human experience would be drastically different. Animal welfare, it's viewed as that, but in a lot of even counties and stuff, those kind of things are over health and human services, because if there were not volunteers everywhere rescuing dogs, you would see them all around outside. You would see, and this is going to be an awful picture, but like in other countries, bunch of stray dogs and people are like, there are too many, and they just poison them. And then you would see deceased dogs on your street. What people don't understand is that there are volunteers and people donating money and not a ton of state funding and federal funding that comes to help to make sure that you don't have that human experience, that you can turn your face and say, I don't know what's going on. I can't even look at that. There are volunteers doing that. And to me, it's things that should be so much more wildly funded. And I would think if people knew that, they would be a lot more okay with maybe like a little bit of a tax increase to make sure that didn't happen, right? But people do it before even being asked. And there's not a lot of things in the world where that's the case.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. Like, even if you're not necessarily a dog person or a companion animal person, first of all, you're not listening to this podcast. But if you if you know somebody who is like that, they're not a pet person, they should still be thanking volunteers in that world, because they're giving you the privilege of not having to see that suffering, not having to see that pain, not having to have, like you said, just like dogs in the street or cats. I mean, there's definitely a big stray cat problem, but really it's hidden by those volunteers putting their work in there
before they were even asked. And yes, because they have a bleeding heart and they love an animal, that's the case. But can you imagine if those dogs that are in shelters or longer in rescue for behavioral cases were out on the street, and then you are walking your own dog and that happens? That would happen if there weren't volunteers stepping up, funding it as well. And that was a really big realization I had when just like a couple weeks ago, I was like, oh yeah, like it's very much taken for granted, I think. I know.
You're absolutely right. I'm really glad that you said that. That's such a important perspective on the situation.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, think about even some cities and states. I think it's Pennsylvania. I could be very wrong, but I believe it is. Like their animal welfare officers or like inspectors and things like that, they're from nonprofits. They are not state funded. Maybe they'll get grants. But the state isn't the one that put them in place. It's someone that decided this is an issue I need to fix, and I'm going to be the answer. Like, that's crazy to me when you think about that. That's wild. Right.
Yeah.
Animal control officers. That's what I was trying to say. Okay.
Yeah, I know what you meant. Yeah, no, think a volunteer. Think a volunteer. Yeah. And if you're not volunteering yet and you're thinking about volunteering, you don't have to do it at the level of being an animal control officer or even being a foster or an advocate. You can just take dogs out on walks. You can help clean kennels. You can help fundraise. There's so many different ways that you can help an organization in your area to keep these things going and moving forward. Just vote for the people who advocate for these things. Vote for the legislation. Sign a petition. Share a social media post.
Yep.
There's a lot of different ways that you can be helping.
Like they say, it's time, talent, or treasure. And I think, like, I obviously do this. I don't have a foster dog right now. But yeah, I do work with a local shelter to bring dogs out and make sure they're being trained and things along those lines. If all you do is take the time to understand what is going on, even at the legislative level in your area, it will open up your mind a whole lot more. Like there's so much that is on the table or being taken off the table that you're just like, well, that's just common sense. And if you just even learn, and this goes for any, honestly, not even just animal welfare, but like any field overall, if you just take the time to learn the process of your, like the legislation in your area, it will completely change your life. And it may sound boring and like, oh, I can't do anything about it. You can. You absolutely can. And like, it is crazy. It is absolutely wild. Like, it takes a while. You have to be patient. But even if it is, so many nonprofits for what they have of, hey, go and look in your area, write to your senator of, move this forward. And they have it all filled out for you. All you need to do is put in your zip code, your name, and it sends it along. Like, they do so much of the work for you. I think that's a big one.
So this is a great time to remind listeners that I have 2 episodes currently out with organizations that are specifically impacting animal welfare and legislation in their states. It's the Pennsylvania Voters for Animals and then the Voters for Animal Rights in the state of New York. So if you haven't yet listened to those episodes, make sure you do that. And I will tease that my very next interview that is coming up, and so probably in the next episode or 2, I'm going to have Pennsylvania State Senator Nick Pisciotano. I'll have to ask him exactly
Right.
how to pronounce his name correctly.
Huge.
But he is a Democrat in Allegheny County, and he is the co-chair of the Animal Advocacy Caucus in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're keeping an eye out for that episode, because we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of legislation and why some legislation that's been around for decades has been languishing and not getting passed in this state.
I'll give you an example actually right here in Tennessee. I just found this out today. There is legislation on the table. I want to make sure I get the D and the E mixed up. That it's to make aggravated animal cruelty enforcement take it from a class D to a class E to D felony, right? Even for juveniles. And we're like, no brainer, like easy peasy, whatever. It went through the Senate and now it's in the House for like the financial side of it. And it is at risk of being taken off the table because the fiscal note technically attached to it is the amount of extra money spent to keep those people incarcerated. So if it's especially for juveniles, that's where it kind of like really touches on. So if they do this, instead of worrying about like, 43% of juveniles who do aggravated animal cruelty, 43% of school shooters have done it in the past, right? Or it's like a history of abusing animals, and animal cruelty involves like intentional and extreme harm. Instead of addressing that and intervening early, they might say, we don't think that's worth the cost. Let's just hope they don't do something down the line. And that's, by the way, like a very probably dangerous generalization of it. So I do apologize for that if it comes off that way, but like something I didn't even know. I was like, oh, just change the letter. You know what I mean? Like but it
Right.
$100,000 extra dollars it would be. And so these legislators have to decide what's worth the risk more, right? It's
Right.
wild. Yeah. So, but to be able to advocate and tell people what you think that risk is, like you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to go to your Capitol and just sit in on these committees. I didn't know that until like fairly recently. You know?
Yeah. They work for us.
Yes. Yeah.
We forget that. The legislators, they work for us. They're put in office by us. They stay in office by us or our lack of action.
Yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah.
And yeah, they absolutely work for us. All of this is public stuff. All of this is publicly accessible. You can write your senators. You can write your legislators. I had a friend that asked me how I got, the senator to agree to come on the podcast. And I said, I asked him. That's literally it. Yep. I mean, I'm so grateful that he has agreed to do it and is going to take time out of his day and no doubt his campaigning because we're approaching the midterms.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I just asked. And so it is easy as maybe that person is not the one that's reading the email that you sent over, but somebody in that office is.
Yeah.
And it's going to get in front of somebody's eyes. So if it's something that you're passionate about, you can certainly make an impact by just voicing your opinion to your representatives. And honestly, that's a freedom that we get that not enough people exercise.
I agree. And when it comes to sharing on social media too, one thing I do want to say is, yes, it helps. Be intentional with what you're sharing though. if there is a post about, a dog being abused or whatnot, don't just share the story. Share it from the organization that's doing what needs to be done to avoid that, right? And I think you get into a lot of politics, like, oh, look this is so bad what the president did. Okay, well, you're posting that. That's great. We're just creating a little more hate and anger. Let's highlight the organizations that are showing up they're doing something, or like post it and donate $5, right? Like do something in conjunction with it, or post it and also write to your senator or something along those lines. Like just know that yes, awareness is the first step and you want people to know, but if you are passionate about it, it has to go further than just share. Has to, if you want things to change.
Yeah, I mean, I think posting with a purpose is a really good lesson. We had actually a really tragic situation I'm going to talk about on a solo episode that just happened to one of our recently adopted puppies, where him and his family were at a park and a neighborhood dog got loose from its house and came and killed the puppy.
Yeah.
And injured the son, the teenage son who went to the hospital.
So traumatic.
And we're all devastated at the rescue because this puppy literally was placed like 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
And the family adored the dog.
Yeah.
And we had already gotten a lot of feedback that things were going so incredibly well. And so we're devastated.
Yeah.
The whole situation sucks. And by the time I found out about it, charges had already been filed against the owners of the dog that got out, which is great. So then I said, well, I want to share this, but why am I sharing it? You know, like what is the purpose behind it? So I shared it with the
trash this family or make people angry, right? Like that's not what I'm doing. Like,
right. So I shared it with the moniker and I put on there, secure your property, train your dogs. Because now not only has one dog lost its life, in my eyes, it's an inevitability that other dog is also going to be euthanized. And, this kid is in the hospital, this young kid is in the hospital, and everybody is devastated. So it's a tragedy all the way around. So secure your property and train your animals.
Yep.
And those preventative measures could have gone a really long way. I don't know this situation. I don't know these people, but just those two things, just securing your property could have been a literal lifesaver in this case. So be intentional about the posts that you're sharing and make sure, post with a purpose. What are we trying to accomplish here?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Beautifully said. Perfect example. 1000%. Like absolutely beautiful.
So let's post with a purpose.
Yes.
Let's talk with a purpose right now. Yes. And let's do our foster spotlight. And I am going to share my screen for anybody that is following along on YouTube, and you are going to want to see this face. So if you are not following along on YouTube, you need to literally just watch it long enough to get to
like pup. It's okay. Like I know I have to brush my hair later. We don't need to know that, but let's look at this dog.
Yeah. I could not care less about how I look. Let's just look at this awesome dog. So why don't you tell us all about Fiona and where she's located and why you chose her for the foster spotlight today?
Fiona is a foster. My friend Meg she's a board member too for Rescue Revival, but she is fostering Fiona. She was at risk of not being able to continue her life. Fiona, not Meg. And Meg stepped up, and she adopted a dog in the past, and she got really into training and everything, and that's how her and I met. So it's really great. But Fiona is a really great example of, a little more time in foster is not a bad thing, right? Because in her time, she has become, of course, like very best friends with her foster sister. She has learned all of these different skills, and she's gotten out in the community so much. And she is actually one of the first pilots for the Pause Before Promise program. And so it kind of comes full circle, which is really cool. But she has just transformed. And it's because of the work Meg did, and she's dedicated, but it didn't take an arm and a leg to do it, right? She just advocated for the dog. And she's, again, available with Rare Rescue here in Nashville. I will transport up if I need to. I'll drive her up if needed. But if they adopt out, I'm not totally positive. But she's just a really cool example of the longer she's in foster, the better she's going to get, and just going to make her adopters even happier. And she's just so cute. She's funny.
So let me tell you what I see with Fiona. So, first of all, she is with Rural Animal Rescue Effort, otherwise known as RARE. So, you can find their website. It's rarerescue.org. And I will post obviously her bio and the link to the rescue in the show notes. But she is 2 years and 2 months old. She is a very light colored, like cream colored pit bull mix. She's weighs about 65 pounds. And what we're looking at right now is she has that very like pivotal and like what you're used to seeing pity smile.
Yeah.
But what I love about her is that she has these big like
Yeah.
bat ears.
Yeah.
Like
With
they're almost
checkered
too
too.
big for her
They
head, like what you
are.
would see on a puppy, but she's
Uh-huh.
an adult.
That picture's
I
so
mean,
cute.
she's huge ears.
Thank
Like
you.
they're definitely not normal, like short pitty ears.
Mm.
They're massive. I mean, that is
They're
amazing
shepherd
and
ears. They
hilarious.
are. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she has huge ears, but she every single picture, she just has this, like, beautiful, happy smile to
Yeah.
her, and she clearly loves to be outside and playing, and the description of her, she is, gonna come spayed, and let's see here real quick.
And trained.
She is dog friendly. She loves car rides. She loves going out on a leash. So, she does prefer to be in a home without cats. And that is totally fair. But she loves, being with her people. She's a very affectionate dog. She really wants to be with her people. So if you are in the central, I think it said central Tennessee area, or if you are an approved adopter in need of a transport and you are looking for an awesome pitty that, you know, is looking for an incredible home and is going to come with some really great skills, then Fiona is the girl for you. She's a beautiful dog.
She
She
really
really
is. Like,
is.
a lot of, I mean, pitties really are so beautiful. And to me, she's a typical pitty, right? Like
Yeah.
what we know to be pit bulls. She's very typical. And again, she's just become so confident. I think that's a big part with training. And to have a confident dog is a wildly underrated thing. To
Yeah. Oh my
and not
God.
yeah, not a cocky dog, right? But like a confident dog that's
Right.
just ready to learn, excited to learn. And it's important to know, like, Fiona's been exposed to group training classes, and the cat thing is really like they just haven't been able really to test her. So it's another just preventative aspect of it, but she is truly incredible. And yeah, and she's going to be an influential part of for fosters and dogs everywhere. Really. She's going to help define this program, and it's really cool.
She is really a beautiful dog. So I
Mhm.
will have her bio in the show notes and I will share her on our social media. But Kimmy, I want you to tell people how they can connect with you and find you
Yeah.
and the organizations you work with.
Yeah, so Rescue Revival on Instagram, it's at Rescue Revival USA. A furniture restoration from 2016 had the regular Rescue Revival. I don't know. Anyway, that's where, and then rescuerevival.org, of course, that's where you can find all of our campaigns. That's where you can support. I do most of the stuff on Instagram. If you want to see what my dogs are up to, Nashville Goldens. No one had that name for some reason. So there's that. Um, and honestly, like, my phone number is everywhere too, guys. If you need to text me, that's fine. But Kimmi at rescuerevival.org is my email. KIMI.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And just as a reminder for all of our listeners, if you're not already following the podcast on social media, you can find us on Instagram at the Foster Files Podcast. And if you think that I should be talking to somebody just like Kimmi, please send me an email at the fosterfilespodcast at gmail.com. But I honestly, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I'm so glad that our worlds finally got together. And
Yeah.
here's the thing. So our mutual friend Mike is not a podcast person.
No.
So
We could talk
he
all
probably will not listen to this episode,
He
but
probably
if he
wants to
does
unmute me
listen to
right now.
this episode, I don't want to give him any credit because his head will swell to be like 3 times
It's
its
already
normal
pretty big,
size
like,
for introducing us.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we give him no credit.
No, and I feel like sometimes I forgot I was being recorded. Like, this was such a genuine conversation, and I know I have so much to learn, to continue to learn, and as I do,
Yeah.
I'm dedicated to teaching people. So please, like, if I need to be educated on anything, continue to educate me and keep doing this great work and let me know how I can help.
Awesome. Well, make sure you let me know the next time you're in the area, and the three of us definitely need to go out and get dinner together.
Yeah, yeah, with dogs.
Thank you so much. And everyone, just as a reminder, be kind to yourself and be kind to animals.